France's traditional May Day parade, celebrated to honor workers' rights and achievements, drew larger crowds this year amid fierce public rejection of a law increasing the retirement age. In what began as a festive atmosphere, hundreds of thousands marched throughout France on Monday, including children, under the watchful eye of thousands of police officers and many law enforcement drones, despite efforts to ban their use. Since the pension measure was presented, there have been 12 days of protests and strikes across France, with violence often breaking out after sunset in the heart of many cities. With the unions united for the May Day protest, the turnout had been expected to be large. France's Interior Ministry reported that 782,000 demonstrators were in the streets on Monday, with the General Confederation of Labor estimating around 2.3 million people had participated. Although the vast majority of demonstrators have been peaceful, authorities had feared violent clashes on Monday. Before the march in Paris, police set up checkpoints and released photos of weapons they had confiscated from protesters, including knives and fireworks. While the vast majority of demonstrations were peaceful, Interior Minister, with the Constitutional Court approving the legislation in mid-April, there is little the protesters can do, however, to stop its implementation. Macron's lack of a parliamentary majority and his recourse to administrative means to pass laws have angered citizens who see his approach as anti-democratic. The government has invited the unions to negotiate over further changes to social benefits that Macron has planned, but so far they have refused. In the run-up to Monday's demonstrations, several rights groups had accused police of excessive use of force and disproportionate use of tear gas in previous demonstrations, especially the Bravem anti-riot unit. The protests have also drawn international attention, with workers' groups around the world holding rallies in solidarity with the French demonstrators.
The human toll of President Vladimir V. Putin's invasion of Ukraine has been revealed. The White House estimates that at least 100,000 Russian fighters have been killed or wounded in the past 5 months. Among them, 20,000 were killed in action, with about half being mercenaries for the Wagner Group. However, these claims could not be independently verified. American officials believe the losses have grown for Russia as it has sent waves of poorly trained recruits and convicts to the front lines. This intense fighting has engulfed the area around Bakhmut, a city that has been central to Mr. Putin's goal of seizing the Donbas region. In other news, Russia launched a broad pre-dawn aerial assault across Ukraine, the second attack in 4 days, as fighting appeared to intensify ahead of an anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive. 2 people were killed and 40 were wounded in Russian strikes on the central Ukrainian city of Pavlograd. President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to respond to any such attack. Meanwhile, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has made a public promise to continue supporting Ukraine's war effort, walking back previous suggestions that the new House majority might curtail U.S. military and financial investments in Kyiv's effort to beat back Russia's invasion. McCarthy said, "I vote for aid for Ukraine, I support aid for Ukraine." Finally, an explosion derailed a freight train in Russia's Bryansk region. The governor of the region blamed an unidentified explosive device, and while Ukraine did not claim responsibility, it maintains a policy of strategic ambiguity about strikes on Russian territory.
May Day protests in France have taken an unexpected turn as workers marched against an unpopular pension overhaul that President Emmanuel Macron recently pushed through. The nationwide demonstrations saw clashes and violence in some areas, with French authorities stating that around 800,000 people took part, while unions claim the figure is closer to 2.3 million. President Emmanuel Macron recently pushed through an unpopular pension overhaul that raised the legal age of retirement from 62 to 64. Although the overhaul was approved by the country's Constitutional Council and officially signed into law, many people in France are still angry and protesting against the change. Protests served as a stark reminder of the residual fury, with Laurent Berger, the leader of the largest union in the country, telling reporters that the protests were a way to continue the fight against the pension overhaul. The protests culminated in a march in Paris against the government's decision to raise the legal age of retirement. Mr. Macron will not find the issue easy to leave behind, as about 60% of the population say they don't want to move on from the pension reform. While Mr. Macron's decision to raise the legal age of retirement was based on his conviction that the pension system was unsustainable, many French people consider retirement an important stage of one's life. They also fail to see the potential benefits of the change for the country's economic development. The head of the General Confederation of Labor has said that the mobilization will not stop until this reform is withdrawn. The May Day protests in France saw workers marching against an unpopular pension overhaul that has been causing anger and unrest in the country for months. Although President Emmanuel Macron has insisted that he would not yield on the pension changes, many people are still protesting against the change. As the protests continue, it remains to be seen how the situation will be resolved. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave your thoughts and comments below.